Hi, my name's Elliot. I'm a mix and mastering engineer based in West London, and this is the third and final video in my series on building out my mix room. I planned to make this video about a week after the last one, but decided against it. Sam Moses from Moses Mastering recommended on a podcast that after you built your room, you take a couple of weeks just to listen to music in there, get to work, do some mixes, and really get to learn your room before you use Room EQ Wizard to measure the room and get your EQ graphs and your RT60 graphs. The reason being is once you've seen those, it's hard not to hear that in your room. You start obsessing on how flat or not flat it is instead of focusing on does it actually sound good in here. And I'm really glad I took that advice. The first few reference tracks I listened to in here, I was actually blown away. The room sounded so flat, the imaging was so crisp and detailed, I could really pinpoint where everything was coming from in the stereo field. The bass wasn't too heavy, it wasn't too bright. I felt like I could finally hear what I was actually listening to. After working in here a couple of weeks, I measured the room with Room EQ Wizard, which I'll show you in a bit, and the results are pretty surprising. But before we get to that, I'll actually show you the new room. So there you have it, that is the studio. I am beyond happy with how this thing turned out. Not gonna lie, it was a bit of an ordeal building these big 4 panels, especially whilst trying to film it, but the difference it's made in this room is beyond my expectations. Not only does it sound good in here, I also think it looks beautiful. Adding the walnut trim between the panels was just the icing on the cake. I've also done the same thing on the bookcases on the back wall. It really just ties the whole room together. So just to go over the specs again of what these panels are, they are 100mm thick rock wool, 600mm wide and 1200 tall. So there's 3.5 slabs of rock wool in each of these 4 panels, as well as 4 of my original panels which are wrapped in the same fabric and hung for the cloud. Unfortunately I ran out of fabric to do the last 2 which I've got on the back wall, so that's the last little thing I need to do in this room and then it will be done. The few mixes that I've done in this room in the past couple of weeks have, in my opinion, been the best I've ever done. Everything is translating so much better. I'm not second guessing myself and everything's just sounding so much tighter, and above all else it's an absolute joy to mix in here. So now you've seen what the studio looks like, let's jump into Room EQ Wizard and see if we've actually made any difference. So the graph we're looking at here is the first measurement I took of the room, how it used to be. And you remember we had a big dip here at 60 Hz, pretty substantial bump here between 100, 200, fairly flat between there, a little peak there around 2k, 1.5k. It was less than desirable. This next measurement here is just with the 4 panels in, no clouds, no ones on the back wall as well. And as you can see, the reason for the difference between these 2 graphs is I don't know how to use Room EQ Wizard properly, so my settings were a little bit off, but we'll do an overlay in a minute so you can kind of compare them apples to apples. So as you can see, a little bit more all over the place, and I was a bit shocked that we had, you know, these kind of peaks and troughs here. We're just putting these in. I thought that would have done a lot more in terms of flattening the frequency response out. This next graph is with the cloud in. So again, it's kind of all that's done, the cloud, as far as I could tell really, was bring the distance between the peaks and the troughs closer together. So that's just the front and side walls, and this is with the cloud. Still got that dip there around 600. We've still got this fairly big dip between around 500 and a big peak around 1.5k. So between, you know, what the room initially looked like and then with the cloud, it seemed to have gotten worse. Or apparently worse just from looking at this. This graph here is with the bookcases with insulation in, and again the difference between that and that is quite substantial. The 500 Hz dip has become way more pronounced, as you can see here, even though the top end's kind of rolled off and smoothed out a little bit, which is nice. Yeah, that surprised me as well. I don't know if that's to do with the modes in the room. If somebody understands why I've got this massive dip now at 500 Hz even with all this insulation in, let me know in the comments, because I would like to try and sort it out. And just to test to see if me sat in the mix position would change the sound anyway, I did one final measurement, which is this one here. So this is with all the insulation in place, microphone here, and I was sat literally just behind it. And that actually seemed to have helped. This 500 Hz dip here. Here's it before, and here's with me sat in the mix position. So me sat here apparently helps. I'm kind of some kind of absorbent material here. Anyway, it's quite hard to see all of those separately, so let's do an overlay. So purple line is the original measurement of the room. The orange one is as it is now with me sat in the mix position. So we've definitely tamed the low end a lot more. The 50 hertz peak has reduced a little bit, as has the overall, 70 to 100, 200, that's smoothed out quite a bit. Again, the 500 is more pronounced, interestingly. Funny enough, we've got more 1K now. I don't know if that is to do with how I've set up the desk, because before, if you remember, we had the speakers on a shelf here. Now they're further back. I don't know if it's to do with a reflection off of the desk. Again, if you know anything about this kind of stuff, let me know. And then again, fairly smooth throughout the top end. So on paper, it doesn't look like we've improved it a huge amount. But as I said in the original video, SPL readings aren't everything. It's not only about the EQ of the room, it's about the decay time of certain frequencies. So let me show you the RT60 graph. This I'm super happy about. Remember, so the purple line again is the first measurement I took, and do you remember we had a 50 hertz was like nearly half a second decay time. We've got that down nearly half to 250 milliseconds. Humongous reduction. Going up from 50 hertz, it's fairly similar. We don't have this big dip at 100 like we used to have. It's fairly smooth all the way down. Here around 250, we're less than 100 milliseconds decay time, and then again fairly flat throughout. So I'm really pleased with what we managed to do in terms of decay time in here. To show you this in more perspective, I'm going to go to the spectrogram. So this is the spectrogram for our initial reading of the room of how it was. Remember, here's our massive 50 hertz, half a second decay time there. Nothing at 60, and then very spotty in terms of the rest of the frequency response. Fairly decent in terms of, they're all hitting around 200 milliseconds, but the amplitude of those certain frequencies are different. And if we switch to what it looks like now, a lot better. 50 hertz is a lot tamer. 60 hertz has actually come back in a little bit. Everything's a bit more even throughout. I said I predicted that it would be a bit more red throughout, and as you can see, if I switch back between the two, that was fairly accurate. So yeah, everything coming in pretty much under 200 milliseconds. Our worst offender here now is about 124, but it's nowhere near what our 50 hertz was before. So yeah, in terms of controlling the decay time of frequencies, I'm really happy with that. I'm debating what I should do to sort out this 500 hertz issue. I've got SonarWorks, and I've actually taken an impulse response of the room. But when I listen back to mixes on it and reference recordings, I'm not much of a fan. I don't know if it's because I've spent so much time listening to the room as it is now without it. But when I engage it, even at about 50%, it's got this nasally quality to the recordings, which I'm not a fan of. Maybe I just need to spend a bit more time listening to music with it engaged. We'll see. But for now, I'm really happy with how my mixes are translating just with the room as it is. So that's it for this Mix Room build series. Thank you so much if you've watched every single episode. I really appreciate the support. It's been so much fun learning about room acoustics, building these panels, putting these videos together for you guys. I really hope you found them either useful or entertaining, or both. And I'd definitely like to keep putting out more videos in the future. Let me know what kind of content you'd like to see below. Whether it's to do with writing, recording, producing, mixing, mastering, whatever it is you're into, let me know, and I'd love to make some more videos like this to help you out. If you like the video, then please like the video, and if you'd like to see more stuff like this, then definitely hit the subscribe button. Definitely go check me out on Instagram if you haven't already, @ElliotGlynnAudio, and shoot me a DM if you'd like to chat about any of this kind of stuff. So now this is all put together, there's nothing left to do but make some more music. I'll see you next time.